All right. Happy Earth Day. Good afternoon. Great to see everyone here. My name is Karen Engel, and I'm a professor at UT Law School here. And along with Professor Neville Hoad in the English department, I co-direct the Bernard and Audrey Rappaport Center for Human Rights and Justice, and also the Sissy Farenthold Fund for Peace and Social Justice. And it's my great honor to welcome you all to our first, this is sort of shameful, I guess, our first ever Earth Day event. But it's great that we're doing it. It's entitled Fighting Pollution, Protecting People and Planet with Law, Advocacy, and Action. That's a mouthful, and we're featuring, not many people can do all of that, but someone who has not only done that, but effectively done that, activist and author Diane Wilson. So I want to begin by acknowledging that we're meeting this afternoon on the indigenous lands of Turtle Island, and to recognize the Alabama Coushatta, Caddo, Carrizo, Comacrudo, Coahuiltecan, Comanche, Kickapoo, Lipan Apache, Tonkawa, Isleta del Sur Pueblo, and other American Indian and indigenous peoples and communities who have or have become a part of the lands now known as Texas. This event is organized as part of our Sissy at 100 celebration, which is the lead up to Sissy Farenthold's 100th birthday, which would have been this October in the fall. And you might have seen we have stickers and postcards. We have them at each of our events, and we encourage you to take a card. Maybe someone can show you if you have one. They're over there. And begin to collect the stamps. So we have a new stamp this time if you've been to other events. There are places where you can put the stamps, and there's a special prize on October 2nd for those with the most stamps. Maybe even there will be a tie, and we'll have special prizes. So those of you who knew Sissy Farenthold know she was a strong advocate for our planet. She was a fixture at Earth Day events for many years. Some of those were even organized by her son, George Farenthold, who I'm glad to say is joining us today by Zoom. From her time in the Texas legislature to her global peace work, Sissy's concern for the planet, including bays, coastlines, and estuaries near her home in Corpus Christi, animated her action. So today is an important tribute to her work. A few quick thanks are in order. First, to Diane Wilson for agreeing to be here with us and also being incredibly easy and fun to work with. We're also grateful to the Environmental Law Society here at UT for co-sponsoring the event, and to Erin Gaines and Kelly Harrigan for their support in making it happen. And of course, I'm thankful to the incredibly dedicated and able Rappaport Center staff and students who helped make today possible. Maybe you can just raise your hand if you consider yourself a Rappaport Center staff or student. This event was largely the brainchild of our Chief of Operations, Cooper Christiancy, back there, who also runs our environmental justice and peace program. And I want to thank Maya Borchardt and Brianna Silva for getting everything ready right now. Are you all here? For getting the information to you and also making it so that you're here and all goes smoothly, and if it doesn't, it's not their fault. Okay, so we now have the distinct pleasure of hearing a few words, and I'm sorry because some people thought he was going to be here in person, but he's larger than life, even on Zoom, from Professor Gerald Torres, a dear friend and I could say former colleague at UT, but still a colleague, to whom I turn for all things related to environmental justice, indigenous self-determination, and their many intersections. Gerald is now the Dolores Huerta and Wilma Mankiller Professor of Environmental Justice at the Yale Law School, or at the Yale School of the Environment, and is also Professor of Law at Yale Law School. And importantly for our purposes today, he's board chair of the Earth Day Network and has generously offered to welcome us and give us a sense of the global commemoration that we are participating in through this event.
I want to say that it's not actually fall here. that is a photograph, but it's not actually fall. In any event, thank you, Karen, and thank you to the Rappaport Center. But I want to talk a little bit about Earth Day and maybe lay a little bit of groundwork for our distinguished visitor. 57 years ago, Earth Day changed American politics. On April 22nd, 1970, 20 million Americans, about 10% of the nation's population, were on the streets and campuses and demanded action to combat 150 years of uncontrolled industrial pollution. The demonstrations were large, bipartisan, and I can say they probably instilled a little bit of fear because of their intensity and scale. And by fear, I don't mean that in a negative sense. I meant it fear in politicians wanting to be reelected. Because what they did quickly was President Nixon created the Environmental Protection Agency. 20 landmark environmental laws, including the Clean Water Act and Clean Air Act and the Endangered Species Act, were passed. And there was a relatively brief but significant kind of honeymoon for practically a decade in the environmental movement. Public pressure worked. But the momentum from that first Earth Day is slowed. And one of the reasons it's slowed, I think, is because of the Supreme Court decision in Citizens United, which basically opened the spigot for unlimited spending. And those who wanted to spend to combat the environmental advances that have been made demonstrated by outspending environmentalists over 20 to 1 in attacking those landmark statutes and their enforcement. The fossil fuel industry spent over $450 million in this last election cycle alone. In the past year, 425 environmental health and safety laws and regulations have been rolled back, crippled, or otherwise attempted to be dismantled, including every climate initiative that was generated. This has happened despite the demonstrated concern among the people of the United States for environmental quality. So the theme for this year's Earth Day is our power, our planet. And what we want that to be more than a slogan. It's a reminder. We want it to be a reminder that the fundamental truth that shaped that first Earth Day is that political power ultimately flows from citizens, real people, to government at all levels. That's the real meaning of our power, our planet. The environmental movement has already shown what collective action can achieve. And remember that Earth Day was never meant just to be a celebration. It was designed to be a demonstration of public will. 57 years later, that challenge remains in front of us. We have to show the governments and others that we have the power to protect the planet because it ultimately belongs to all of us. And when we think about the role of activists in propelling the environmental movement forward, often in the face of daunting odds, we think about people like Diane Wilson. Texans have never shied away from a fight. Every Texan in the room knows that. And Diane exemplifies that Texas spirit. For a full introduction, I turn the floor over to my dear friend, Karen Engel, who founded the Rappaport Center. So welcome to Earth Day. Let's make Earth Day count. Our power, our planet.
Thank you so much, Gerald. So it is now my honor to introduce Diane Wilson, even though I think your presence here shows that she needs no introduction. But she's going to get one anyway. And I talk about demonstration of public will. I think Diane Wilson is a manifestation of that. So Diane is a fourth-generation shrimper, as well as a boat captain, mother of 5, author, and an environmental peace and social justice advocate. Over her decades of public policy and action, she has launched and won lawsuits and engaged in legislative campaigns, demonstrations, hunger strikes. She even climbed a chemical tower to protect the Gulf Coast Bay from pollution, degradation, and extraction. Inspiring for the Rappaport Center, Diane has also always bridged the local and the global, seeing relations not only between those, but among injustices. So some of you may not know that she's also the co-founder of the women's anti-war group, Code Pink, and is co-founder of the Texas Jail Project, which advocates for inmates' rights in Texas county jails. Since 2012, Diane has been executive director and waterkeeper of San Antonio Bay Estuarine Waterkeeper, director of that, on the Texas Gulf Coast. She was a lead plaintiff, as many of you know, in the Waterkeeper versus Formosa case, which settled in 2019, but it seems like, I don't know, it seems like still relatively recently, although a long time ago. This is kind of how things are right now. For $50 million, a landmark outcome that led to her winning the 2023 Goldman Environmental Prize. Most recently, Diane engaged in a month-long hunger strike outside Dow's plant in Seadrift to bring attention to Dow's ongoing pollution, as well as its plans to install small modular nuclear reactors at the plant. And she joins us today exactly 3 weeks after that campaign, which she called No Nukes and No Nurdles. We're very glad to have you here today with us, Diane, in good health and good spirits, and calling us to action. There's really no one I can imagine to better help us reflect on our power, our planet here in Texas. So just before joining me and welcoming her, I want to say, following Diane's remarks, she'll be in conversation with Professor Erin Gaines with the Texas Law's Environmental Law Clinic. And before coming to UT, Erin was also a supervising senior attorney at Earth Justice, and before that, an attorney at Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid, and goes way back with Diane, having represented her over the years in some of her legal actions. And so it's going to be great to hear them talk to each other about some of that work. So she'll ask a few questions and then lead the Q&A from the audience as well. And then we're going to have a reception. So please join me in welcoming Diane.
We're going to do the video first.
Yeah. Video.
Can we welcome you first?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, you don't have to get up then. Here she is. Thank you so much, Gerald. So it is now my honor to introduce Diane Wilson, even though I think your presence here shows that she needs no introduction. But she's going to get one anyway. And I talk about demonstration of public will. I think Diane Wilson is a manifestation of that. So Diane is a fourth-generation shrimper, as well as a boat captain, mother of 5, author, and an environmental peace and social justice advocate. Over her decades of public policy and action, she has launched and won lawsuits and engaged in legislative campaigns, demonstrations, hunger strikes. She even climbed a chemical tower to protect the Gulf Coast Bay from pollution, degradation, and extraction. Inspiring for the Rappaport Center, Diane has also always bridged the local and the global, seeing relations not only between those, but among injustices. So some of you may not know that she's also the co-founder of the women's anti-war group, Code Pink, and is co-founder of the Texas Jail Project, which advocates for inmates' rights in Texas county jails. Since 2012, Diane has been executive director and waterkeeper of San Antonio Bay Estuarine Waterkeeper, director of that, on the Texas Gulf Coast. She was a lead plaintiff, as many of you know, in the Waterkeeper versus Formosa case, which settled in 2019, but it seems like, I don't know, it seems like still relatively recently, although a long time ago. This is kind of how things are right now. For $50 million, a landmark outcome that led to her winning the 2023 Goldman Environmental Prize. Most recently, Diane engaged in a month-long hunger strike outside Dow's plant in Seadrift to bring attention to Dow's ongoing pollution, as well as its plans to install small modular nuclear reactors at the plant. And she joins us today exactly 3 weeks after that campaign, which she called No Nukes and No Nurdles. We're very glad to have you here today with us, Diane, in good health and good spirits, and calling us to action. There's really no one I can imagine to better help us reflect on our power, our planet here in Texas. So just before joining me and welcoming her, I want to say following Diane's remarks, she'll be in conversation with Professor Erin Gaines with the Texas Law's Environmental Law Clinic. And before coming to UT, Erin was also a supervising senior attorney at Earth Justice, and before that, an attorney at Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid, and goes way back with Diane, having represented her over the years in some of her legal actions. And so it's going to be great to hear them talk to each other about some of that work. So she'll ask a few questions and then lead the Q&A from the audience as well. And then we're going to have a reception. So please join me in welcoming Diane.
We're going to do the video first. Yeah.
Can we welcome you first?
Yes.
You don't have to get up then. Here she is.
I'm a fourth-generation fisherwoman. In these waters, my grandfather started the family fishing business. There were more shrimp caught in these Gulf bays than anywhere else in the country. That bay she's alive.
That is the nursery of the Gulf of Mexico.
Alcoa moves to Point Comfort in 1948. By the early 1980s, more plants have joined Alcoa.
Each one discharging 5 million gallons per plant, per day, going into these bays.
Before they put this discharge line in Lavaca Bay, there were several hundred boats, shrimp boats, just slowly everyone, one by one, starved out.
I had this one shrimper, he had 3 different types of cancer, and he said, read this. It was what's going out the smokestacks, what's going in the water. We had half the toxic waste generated in the state of Texas right there in our county. And so I decided I was going to do something. They are not going to get that bag.
I called the head of the groundwater division in the EPA. A housewife with 5 kids and no budget knows more than the EPA in Dallas knows.
We need these jobs in Calhoun County.
We took it to the streets.
What do we do when they attack our base? Stand up, fight back!
I just love causing good trouble. There is a lot of intimidation.
We got this letter to the Hellcat, no address.
If I was ever arrested, they were going to lock me up in the loony bin. They're not telling the workers they're being exposed. I got whistleblowers.
I knew something was going to happen sooner or later.
They had dynamite information.
I started telling her what was going on.
They retaliated against me.
I had my boat sabotaged.
It had gotten to the point where I was carrying a 45 and a sawed-off shotgun everywhere as I went.
A helicopter landed in the front yard, shot at the house. They shot the dog. I am not afraid of death. As a matter of fact, the more they try, the more stubborn I get about it. I will probably be fighting to my last breath. What I wanted to show y'all is the Hellcat documentary, which is going to be shown in San Francisco May 2nd. That shows a lot of the action that I have did for 38 years. So, and it's, if you will notice on the paperwork, it said the action, advocacy, and, well, I forgot what it said. Anyway, so, what was the law? Okay, so the point of it is when I first started doing this activism, I was 40 years old. I was working on a fish house because shrimping was so bad, and the toxic release inventory came in. I mentioned about the shrimper coming in and showing me an article. It was the first time the toxic release inventory was made public in Calhoun County, was number one for all the toxins in a landfill, and it was because of Alcoa. And at just that time, Formosa was trying to come in. But people have always wondered what kept me motivated for 38 years, because it has not been a job. It has taken over my life, and it's like my identity now. This is who I am. And it started, well, you can see it here. It started with growing up in a fishing town where you're fourth generation, your family, that's my grandfather right there, and your whole community, and it was probably one of the last authentic fishing villages left on the whole Texas Gulf Coast. Everybody was centered around the fish houses, the boats, the bays, and so that became your identity. And let me see. I don't think it wants to move. Oh, okay. So this kind of shows you if you have spent your whole life on the water, and the community and the soul of your community is the bay and the water, then it becomes family. And so I have identified so strongly with the bay as real. Matter of fact, when I was, you see this younger picture of me when I was about 6 years old, is I literally, when I would go to the bay to see the boats come in and they bring in the shrimp and they bring in the fish, it's like I literally could see the bay as an old woman. There was an old woman down there. And so it's sort of a magical, spiritual connection. So I could literally see the bay, and she was an old woman, and she was my grandmother. And so when you have that feeling, and I feel very fortunate to have had that and remembered it. So I have a strong sense of place, and that is what has kept me all these years. There we go. And here are the fishermen that are in my community. We have oystermen, we have the fin fishermen, we have the Vietnamese crabbers, and we have the shrimpers. And it is now taken a very drastic turn. It's all in a crisis, and really one things that is surviving is the oystering right now. And this pretty much is when my battle began. In 1989, when there was a large dolphin die-off. It was the largest dolphin die-off in the mammal stranding network history. There were dead dolphins all over Matagorda Bay. They were in San Antonio Bay. And there were like scientists trying to figure out why all of these dolphins were dying. And at the same time that was happening, and boats were bringing in dolphins on the back of their boats, and you would have trailers that came from Galveston to put on the trailers to send to Galveston to do necropsies on them to find out what was the matter. What we had was, we had the toxic release inventory out, and like I said, we were number one, And then at the very same time, Formosa Plastics was bringing in the largest chemical plastic expansion in Texas's history. And they were trying to come in, and pretty much the state of Texas had guaranteed them they were going to expedite visas, they were going to expedite all of the permits. Matter of fact, there were not going to be any of the permits because nobody was going to ask questions. Nobody, the economic development was going to guarantee that only this very pristine picture about Formosa Plastics coming in. And so they pretty much were giving them $250 million tax abatements for a $3 billion plastic project. And this is the beginning. And I guess this will tell you about two of the lawsuits that I've been involved in. The Formosa Plastics one that started we started collecting data, the plastic pellets, on Formosa in 2016. And basically, like I said, this is Formosa, this is outfall 8, stormwater outfall 8. It's probably big enough you could land a helicopter in it. That was stormwater outfall 6. And you know, when you think of stormwater outfalls, you think of, well, it rains and it puts rain in the ditches and then the ditches flows on off, except it kind of floods the plant, so you're not only getting rainwater, you're getting discharges from the units, you're getting pellets that had been all over the fields and been washed out of units. And so, matter of fact, this particular outfall right there in Formosa's discovery, on that particular outfall, out of 10 outfalls, they had 10 outfalls, and they had been there for probably over 20 years, and that outfall on that one day had 170,000 pounds of pellets in one day. And you know how much 170,000 pounds of pellets is? It's probably close to 3 billion pellets. And that was out of that one there. And this is kind of show you how we collected. We had to collect the evidence because Formosa had not made a single report of putting out pellets. And TCEQ had not had a single report in finding plastic pellets out there. So basically, I knew about pellets because workers in the plant told me about them. Matter of fact, one of the workers had worked 20 years in the utilities, which is around wastewater, and he got concerned because he took his kids fishing, and when they were getting into the skiff, they had pellets all over their bare feet. And that's when he realized that the plastic pellets that he saw in the units of the wastewater being the treatment were ending up in the bay. So he started telling me information about the pellets in the bay, and that's when we started just walking the shores, you know. And the thing of it is, I had never noticed that. I've been on the water my whole life. I had never saw plastic pellets. And you walk down the shore, or you walk down where there's a boat launch, and you could just see waves coming in with these plastic pellets. And this was on Cox's Creek. I was in a kayak, such as that one right there. Formosa had 10 stormwater outfalls. And I located their stormwater outfalls, and that's where you found all of the pellets. I mean, there were at this area right here, I remember when I was there, on the left side of me, on the right side of me, as far as I looked in either direction, it was nothing but plastic. And so we collected all of the pellets, and we were extremely fortunate to have the legal team from Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid. And there's at least 3 of the lawyers right here in this. You know, people still cannot believe that Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid with that team went up against Formosa's lawyers, and we won that case. Yeah. Okay. Matter of fact, here, this is the evidence. And you can see it was pretty shoot from the hip, because I was organizing it. So that's what it looked like. And then we packed it all in those boxes, and that's a goat cart, actually. And we hauled it into court, and we got 0 discharge of plastics. The only one out there, we got $50 million. And it was the largest of a citizen suit in the entire Clean Water Act. And not only that, we have got monitoring. I think the only one in the country that has monitoring where they can monitor a waste stream before it goes into the water. Because if you wait until afterwards, the company's going to say, oh, that was a week ago, that wasn't my pellets. But now there is a WSM, a wastewater sampling mechanism. Am I getting too long? Okay. But now we have that, so we actually can test their waste stream and say, you are putting plastic out. And so all of these companies, all of these plastic companies, there is actual devices that work that can tell if there is plastic in their waste stream. And matter of fact, that is why we went to the second one. Let's see. There we go. That is Dow. And it's Union Carbide, who has been in Seadrift since the 50s, and they have been putting out plastic since the 50s. I have met grown retired men who remember going to the barge docks where Union Carbide was with all of their plastic, and they would jump off the bridge into the plastic, and they would gather the plastic, take it home. They said they would stick it in the oven to make it soft so they could play with it. I can't even imagine what God only knows. But anyway, so this is a company, it was taken over by Dow, and they have been putting out plastic for decades. Matter of fact, you can go, you know, the barge docks it's where they have some of their outfalls. That's where they have their harbor too. And it's like 20 miles long, and some places are pretty high, like maybe 20 foot up. And you can literally see in the levels of the soil, levels of just layers of plastic, where over the years they have been dumping plastic. And we have found areas up on the bluff where it's areas, the first area I looked at, it was literally like 300, twice the length of this, and about as wide, and it was covered in plastic. You could not, some places, you could not reach the end of it. And this was Dow. You know, and the thing of it is when we tried to bring in some of the samples, it was like we really hit a nerve with the people, maybe workers, maybe people who are upset about anybody rocking the boat, but we really ran into a real fierce clash in our community about making companies accountable, because there's some people, they really do, some people believe that it doesn't matter what a company does as long as they got a job. They don't care. And then, but the thing of it is they never take into account the cost of what it does to a community. You have fisheries that are gone. You've got dolphins that have had die-offs. You have illnesses in communities that they don't know where it come from. And then to find all of this plastic all over Matagorda Bay, and then you see it in the Victoria Barge Canal, and it's leaking into San Antonio Bay, Mission Bay, and it's even, they have found it in Gulf Bayou, which is the drinking water source for all of Port Lavaca. So now this has been our second attempt to get zero discharge of plastic and to get enforcement, to get accountability, to get monitoring, and let's see. And so this shows you some of the plastic, like this area. One of the areas I went to, and those 2 bags there weighed 107 pounds. We caught this in 15 minutes, a worker and myself. 107 pounds, that amounted to over 2 million pellets. And it's all over these areas. It's all over the banks. Matter of fact, if you bring your boat and you kind of edge it, you can see it wherever your boat goes. It brings up powder and it brings up plastic. And this little 17-year-old kid still in high school. He's been going out because when I was on the hunger strike, and he's been going out. And then here are some of my lawyers down here. And there is the barge canal, outfall 5 of Dow. And so we filed a 60-day notice of intent to sue Dow, Union Carbide, and Braxcombe for all of this plastic they have put out there. Matter of fact, for decades, they've been putting it out. And probably maybe 2 or 3 days before we filed suit, the state of Texas, Ken Paxton, filed their suit on behalf of TCEQ. And if you know anything about a Clean Water Act, especially a citizen suit, if the state files ahead of you, then it kind of knocks you out. And so that knocked out our lawsuit. But personally, what I think happened is I think Dow Industry does not want another Formosa Plastics zero discharge monitoring. They do not want that. They got to see the writing on the wall, because I'm telling you, the writing is on the wall, and it is going to happen. And so right now, I feel like they personally are trying to find ways to block it. And so that's why I did my 30-day hunger strike in the ditch at Dow. I'm pretty good about knowing legal places to do hunger strikes. I'm getting real good about that. And also I got arrested for doing it. Like I said, this is a Seadrift plant. Since 1950, it's called Dow or Union Carbide Seadrift plant. But yet, a Seadrifter, native, in our town they call them bay rats, my whole life have been there, and they would not address us at all. They would not talk at all. Matter of fact, when I went to just walked over there to hand them our demands, the only one who came out was the supervisor, and he pretty much said, "This is the way it's going to go. You're not going to bring me a letter. You're not going to sit on the couch. You come back again, and you're going to be arrested." And I'm like, "You're going to arrest me for bringing a letter to you?" And he said, "I remember when you climbed the tower." He said, "Past history, past history." So anyway, and they did. The lawyers came and gave me a warning, and the last thing I did was arrested. And but anyway, so that's where it stands now. We are intervening in the lawsuit with the state. We are fighting their air permit because Dow is saying that, because right now the permits say trace amounts. If you have trace amounts, that's what's legal. Anything over trace. And trace means you're having a hard time finding it. You know, you got to look pretty hard to find trace. And so that's what you're allowed. But what you get is vast amounts, and that's what Dow's been doing for all of these years. And at their last request before TCQ in their permit, is they're saying that is kind of vague and it's kind of mean, and they're thinking they might need something a little more. So actually, it's like Dow almost requesting permission to pollute at will. And so that is the fear, is that this is Texas. This is what they want. Industry pretty much plays the cards. They got the power. They got the intimidation in communities. When you saw Dale and Ronnie talking, they were literally in fear. Both of those guys have been in fear for many, many years, and they got good reason to. And so I am here today. I'm glad of the opportunity to be able here to talk, but also it's to let people know this is going to stop. It's going to stop. And the thing of it is, there's a reason why they call me the Hellcat. I've been doing this for 38 years, and I am sick and tired of saying, please, will you just please not pollute on Christmas Day? Or will you please not do it on our front lawns? Because, I believe people are way too polite. And I think it's time that we become a little unreasonable. I truly do. And it's for the planet, it's for our children, and it's for the future of our whole community. Anyway, that's it.
Hi, everyone. It's an honor to be here. I'm Erin Gaines with Diane. And thank you so much, Diane. So I have a few questions, and then we'll open it up, as I'm sure you all have a lot of things you'd like to ask Diane here today. So I wanted to start with, I graduated from this law school, and I started working at Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid, and had just the great honor and fortune of getting to work with Diane on this Formosa case, along with Amy Johnson, David Frederick, who are here. And, we started, Diane, we were working actually with the oystermen, like you showed, and we were working on a wastewater permit for Formosa. Formosa was trying to increase certain levels of pollutants. So we were working on that, and Diane started mentioning these pellets and the nurdles. And we said, yeah, but Diane, we're working on this, this other permit right here. And she just kept mentioning them. And so we said, okay, well, start taking pictures, or start documenting it and send it to TCQ. That's TCQ's role. If they're not allowed to discharge these, then that's for TCQ. So Diane started sending in these complaints to TCQ, and every once in a while they might do an investigation, but like you said, they didn't actually go forward with it and stop anything from happening. So then, many years you're collecting these, right? These pellets, the nurdles.
Almost 3 years.
I hadn't heard any of these terms before. I didn't learn about nurdles in law school, but I guess people now do.
Yeah.
Thanks to you. And I think it's just very, hearing Gerald Torres speak about the history of Earth Day, honoring this Clean Water Act, and Diane, how you said, so what was really striking to me is there's citizen suit provisions in most of our major environmental laws. And the idea behind them was that everyday people could step in if the government is not actually enforcing the laws, because they knew they're maybe either unwilling to or don't have the resources to, and can step in and enforce the laws. And so I think this is an amazing example of that. And it even goes beyond what a lot of citizen suits are, which is most citizen suits are based on companies' self-reported data. And so this is an example of not only you and regular people in your community, right, stepping up and holding this company accountable.
Right.
But you also collected all the evidence.
Right. Right.
And so I'd like to ask you a little bit more about that because it's pretty novel for
Mhm.
these types of cases to do that. What do you think that, people can learn from how you and Ronnie and Dale and, many others in your community have stepped up and have been literally what we're talking about, our power,
Right.
taking back that what people learn from that.
Well, the first thing they should know is it was probably myself, Ronnie, which was he formerly had been 25 years at the PBC ship supervisor. So he had been with the company for 25 years and he had no illusions about that company at all. But he said it was my bread and butter. He even admitted readily I lied for them many, many times. But the thing is, I don't think people realize that when you see something so simple, it was like the pellets were there and you could go out there and see them. And if you followed them, you could find even more. And the thing of it is, and then we would go have a meeting. I remember going and having a meeting after having seen all these pellets and then having a meeting with Formosa Plastics, and it was a big long conference room and they're all in their suits. And I remember I asked them this one guy, and I said, tell me, do y'all lose plastic pellets? And he looked at me and he said, we do not lose one single pellet. We sell them all. And he pointed to one of the units, a polypropylene unit, and he said, tell them we sell every pellet. And the thing left is like, he was the biggest liar. And the thing of it is like, so it's really simple sometimes to see, but then you take it and you go out and start collecting. And you want to talk about people getting upset that you're out there. They would send the cops down there to kind of check on us. What are you doing out here? They would send the game wardens down there. What are you doing out here? They have seen, and I know that a lot of times, because people didn't believe us when we said we were finding plastic pellets, I would post them on Facebook. And I mean, it was like people, some of them went ballistic, and it was like, you're crazy, you're trying to get money, you're making it up. A lot of times it was just so one thing you learn is sometimes you really gotta make a fool of yourself, and it's okay to do it. It really is. And the thing of it is, I remember I had this real savvy lawyer in Austin, actually, was with Texans United. And he told me one time, he said, Diane, do not ever do anything that your community is against. And I said, well, if I gotta wait on my community, they're gonna put a cement plant out there in the middle of the bay and gonna be marketing them right in the middle of the bay. And it's so sometimes that feeling you get is a correct, and you need to move on. And don't ask too many people if you're correct, because people tell you no. You're being a real nice, and don't do it. So I have learned that you got to do what you feel is right, because often it is right. And I had no idea, and I'm sure Ronnie and Dale had no idea that what we were doing, what it was leading to. All I know is we collected rain or shine, through the hurricanes, through high water, through the alligators. Oh yeah, there are alligators out there, through the snakes. And we collected those samples, and we had, I think, over 2,500. I lost a few of them because Ronnie was so paranoid about the worker, he was, because, you know, he was very, very paranoid. And so he was so afraid about keeping the pellets samples in his barn that, so he gave them to me. So I kept all of the samples at my house. And I mean, you could see that one picture, they were all over the lawn. There were over 2,500 samples that we
I
collected.
brought him to the courthouse.
Yes, yes.
And to the law students out there, there were plenty of ways that law students were involved through the clinic, at legal aid, looking at those photos, cataloging them, the videos. So there was a lot, you know, a lot of different people involved.
Yeah.
And some of you may not know this, but consent decrees, when if you settle a citizen suit, and or even if you win in court, or if you settle one, the penalties that we're talking about, they don't go to the people who bring the case. So the penalties go to the government if you're, you know, if you win in court. And a consent decree, what happened here was it went into this mitigation trust, and it goes to all these different community groups. So, for example, to help revitalize fisheries.
Oh, yeah.
The
Yeah.
fishing co-op.
Yeah, we've got, as a matter of fact, I knew that was because, I remember when the 50 million is like, where on earth do you have money? I mean, it was a hard question. I had to really think. And I remember, Amy was like, we need to think where you're going to put the money. And I was, you know, but I did know, because my whole identity is a fisherwoman, and I know the importance of that community. And our community, like in Cedar, it was dead. I mean, the fish houses were bulldozed, the boats were no longer there, and the whole front Main Street of Cedar was boarded up. It was like everything that had supported the fisheries, like welding, like diesel mechanics, like having the marine supplies to do with the webbing and the cable and the thimbles and all that, it was gone. And I knew, I refused to say, and people do, they want to say, they still want to say it. In little old town of Cedar, there's these people say, fishing is dead, shrimping is dead, it's never coming back. And that's why I refuse that. I totally refuse it. It's just that we have killed important parts, and we refuse to fight for it. And I refuse to let it go. And so the largest amount, the 20 million, went into building a cooperative and sustainable, equitable fishery cooperative that would take in the diverse groups, because we had Vietnamese, we had Hispanics, we had white Anglos, and it has not always been real stable down there. So it was important that they come together. And I know for fishermen, they're highly independent, and they are their own person, and they generally do not, they do not have groups and pull together. But they came for this cooperative because they said it was their last chance. And they did. And now we have this cooperative. It is filed with the state of Texas. It's a business. They have a processing plant. They're the group that sustains them is over 254 people. And they now have put in a oyster farm that will be the largest in the Gulf of Mexico. And it all came from that. Right.
Yeah, one more question for you, then we're gonna open it up. So your work has been not just about protecting the environment. You've also focused, like you talked about, your competitions before, tourism, injustice. I think Karen mentioned Code Pink, the
Right.
Texas Jail Project,
Right.
your Guantanamo
Right.
work. So how, in your mind, do these various issues relate to each other?
Well, I think they all relate. I think we all just tend to put up barriers around and says, it's this and only this. But I think if you look into anything in depth, that you will see they're all connected. I remember one time there was, I don't know, it's probably not well known, it was when George Bush had the ranch. That little ranch, remember that little ranch back yonder? Anyway, there was a woman whose son died in the war, and she wanted a response from George Bush, and she went to great lengths to try to reach George Bush, and it never would. But one day she got a couple of vets for peace, and she walked down a ditch, and it was like, because they wouldn't let her on the road, they said it was illegal and they were blocking her, so they set in the ditch. The ditch is really important. You can do a lot of things. Set is a ditch with a few vets for peace, and George Bush's little ranch was not right down the path with a lot of Secret Service down there, and that ditch occupation turned into over, I believe, 15,000 people in like 2 or 3 weeks. It was the Camp Casey was what it was called. And the thing was, I mean, there was Joan Baez, all of these singers, all of these people from all of these diverse groups all over. And I remember there was a lot of people that were very involved in the civil rights issues. And I remember they were saying, it's like, there's all these different issues, and what we need to do is pull them together, and we got a real fist, and we can fight this. We can really come together. And I really do. I think, you know, if some of the environmental folks, but matter of fact, one issue is like, for instance, I have a real connection with the workers in the plant. And it's like, I find a lot of the environmental groups don't have much connection with workers in the plant. And I was like, I mean, to me, if you're there long enough, they will start coming to you because they have problems and they can't go. The agencies don't care of you. The elected officials don't take care of you. The companies certainly don't take care of you. So the thing of it is, you really have an ally in the workers in the environmental groups, which is, you know, I have always felt it's got this unnecessary divide. And so I you know, it's kind of like having the connection with the jail project, you know, because I've been arrested a lot. It was a natural, you go in and you hear those stories, you know. And I remember someone was actually, I remember some guys from Green Party came down and they wanted me to run for office, and I said, well, I'm in jail. And then he liked you. The thing of it is, it's this camaraderie that you can feel with people that are all suffering the same injustice. It's all the same injustice. It's just a little bit different figure on it. And, you know, I think we are missing out by not coming together with this, but I do know that, you know, I remember it was a quote by Gandhi. He said, but I think people were asking him about the different things he went into, and he says, when a door opens, I walk into it. And that is what I do. It is kind of like a thing with me now, and I trust it. It's when a door opens up, I go there. And sometimes I have no idea why or what the connection is, but you find it. You do find it. Yeah.
Well, I could keep asking lots
Oh,
of questions, but I want to open it up.
I have a question. First of all, thank you for opening so many doors of justice in all the years you've done this good work. Thank you. Would you share with us some of your thoughts about nuclear power and about your sentencing, about the county jail work?
Oh, yeah, well, I can tell you about, I know in Seadrift, there's Dow, the plant that we are fighting for all of the plastic pollution. They are now, bringing in 4 nuclear modular reactors to power their facility so they can make more polypropylene. That's what they're going to do. And they are laying off globally 4,500 workers so they can bring in AI. And it's like, and it's, this is where sometimes I think you have to unlearn a few things, because if you got too much learning, you automatically accept things that make no sense, because that's what you do. And it's like, so I can sit and listen to, for instance, I was sitting in some of the oral arguments. Why? Because it was extremely hard for a native people of Seadrift, fishermen, who are right at the door of those nuclear modular reactors they want to have, and for it to be really difficult to even say that you have any issues. And so it's really hard even to fight them, because it's like, if you talk to the county commissioners and you talk to the governor, well, by God, you got room to move in there. And so one, for regular people to fight that, I mean, it's really, it's like they totally can't see it. There's just too many regulations to start blocking it. And then the thing that is when you start saying, well, you're right on the area in the bay where there have been numerous hurricanes that have wiped out these communities. These have been wiped out. And they're like, oh, no, you don't have to worry about climate change. We don't have to worry about hurricanes. Like just last year, they had the Guadalupe River that flooded and killed all of those people. And like the Guadalupe empties right at the door of Union Carbide Dow. And it's like, oh, no flooding, nothing's going to bother us here. And so the only thing they are allowing us to have a contention over is some of their finance. And so it's really hard to see that bringing in something that bad. And it's an experimental one. It's like they got these new types of little tennis balls. It's like a big gumball machine. It's got all these tennis balls, and you see these big nuclear reactors that have the cement and the rebar and that is supposed to be the containment. And it's like, nah, we don't have containment, because we got the little balls and everybody's going to be fine. And we don't need emergency areas of the zone, because there's not going to be an accident. And here, this company can't even take care of pellets. And here we're supposed to trust in with all that radiation. And it's like, that's why I believe in civil disobedience. That really is, because when you run out of options, it's like that's why I've done so much civil disobedience. It's like, this is ridiculous.
The sentencing work you've done, sentencing project work you've done.
I'm sorry.
Can you talk about the?
Oh, the sentencing. Yeah, one of my actions actually supporting the people of Bhopal, India. I opened that door and I walked through it, and I went to India and met the people of Bhopal, India. And that disaster that happened because of Union Carbide, which is the plant in my community. So the people in Bhopal, it was one of their anniversaries. It was when one of the government officials, they were going to turn the charge into something like a traffic accident. So there was gonna be no harm, it's kind of like a traffic accident. And so the people in Bhopal were so upset about it that they went on a hunger strike and they wanted to spread it. And so they asked who could start a hunger strike in the United States. And I was like, I will do it. And so I did. I went into their ditch. I went into their ditch and did a hunger strike for 30 days. And the whole time I was looking at that plant. And you know, this was after 9/11. All that security, nobody could get into the plants because they got such security. And I've been looking at that tower for like 30 days, and I was like, I wonder if that fence is electric. and so this is about taking an idea. And so I'm like, you know, I live on the water, and these guys work out in the Gulf, and they're always losing their hard hats. So these hard hats float in. So I had a couple of hard hats. So I put on a hard hat. I had a yellow banner supporting Bhopal. I put on the glasses, and I started walking down the road the same time workers go to the plant, and they thought I lost my ride. So they picked me up and shipped me right into the plant. And so I just waited till everybody went through units. Then I went to that fence, threw my banner over, climbed it up, and scaled an 80-foot tower. And I brought along the exhaust part of mine. It was stainless steel exhaust pipe that goes on my shrimp boat. I had that big of a piece, stainless steel. You cannot cut into that. And so I brought that, and I climbed it, and I was waiting for security to see me before I chained myself. But security ignored me, so I had to stand up and wave. And this was after 9/11. And they never figured out how I got in there. They still never figured it out. But anyway, they gave me 104 months in jail and a $2,000 fine. So that's where I met all of the inmates in the jails, and that's where we started. That it's now been over 10 years, one of the greatest Texas jail projects. If you ever run into problems with the county jail, reach out to the Texas Jail Project. Yeah.
PCEQ is notorious for ignoring the law.
Yes.
Recently, PCEQ was dealing with multiple issues. For example, the orphan wells, there's thousands of them. They don't enforce the law. And obviously TCEQ didn't come to your aid.
No.
And so most of the businesses, they give them a fine, we're gonna fine you. That's just like doing business.
Yeah.
So other than going to the polls and voting out these people that work, what else can we do as individual citizens?
Well, I tell you what I do. I
I'm
vote.
the tower, yeah.
Yeah. I do. I vote, but I wish I could say there is someone that you can go to and get, you know, some sort of legislation. Matter of fact, you talk to some of the lawyers. Matter of fact, one of my old lawyers was Jim Black, and I fired him 4 times. Then I hired him back. So basically, he even said, TCEQ gets its budget from the Texas legislature, and the Texas legislature, they don't want enforcement. Matter of fact, I'll tell you what happened with me. It's like I went to TCEQ down in Corpus Christi. One of these days before they made you gotta make an appointment before you go down there, I went down there and I was going through all their files, and these 2 investigators just watching me. And then finally, I've been there like 2 hours, and then they said, and they took me to the filing cabinet in the back room, pulled it open, pulled me a file and said, you do something with it. They said, it won't go nowhere in Austin, and we don't even want to know what's going on. And it was all of the groundwater contamination underneath Formosa. It was known, and all of this paperwork itemized the whole thing, and it's like Formosa denied it, they knew it, but they couldn't get enforcement from it. And so those workers gave it to me, TCEQ. And then I know like OSHA, no, EPA criminal investigator. I tell you about Ronnie, who lied, he lied for Formosa about all of these releases. You know, sometimes it would be like 4 tons and they would say 20 pounds or something like that. And he got really tired of it. It was making him almost mentally upset about it. He was just going bananas about it. And so he got me, and I got a EPA criminal investigator. He brought all his paperwork. He testified. We had witness statements, and the EPA criminal investigator turned off the paper cutter, and he said, that's gonna go nowhere. Bring me a dead worker. That's what he said. And then he said, take care of it. Do it. And so that's EPA criminal investigator. And that was TCEQ. So it's like, so to answer your questions, I do a lot of civil disobedience. I do a lot of pressurizing when there's an agency that is not doing your business. I first do everything that you should do. And if they don't pay any attention to that, then I figure out an action to do to start getting right in their face. Because they don't like you in their face. And it really is, I'm sorry folks, it gets a little embarrassing. You look like a fool a lot. They call you crazy a lot. But it's like, you can move things that way. And in 50 years, people will say, I think they might have had some. You know? Yes,
I think we have a question on the Zoom.
George, you're on. Hi, Diane. It's good to see you again.
Hey, George.
And I just want you to know, as the second son of the, let me just say, we're all so proud of you. We can't sit still. And Maya, I want to remind you that my mom was the legal aid director at Nueces County.
Oh, wow.
And that was part of her ascension to the legislature. She saw firsthand the indignity and the crisis amongst unrepresented people, and that's what drove her to run for the legislature in '68.
Yeah.
So we call what you both do up there at the table, at the lead table, as doing the Lord's work. So thank you both.
Thank you, George. I remember George when he had real curly hair.
It's still it's all in there somewhere, but it's anyway. The point is also that these battles, Diane, and I remember going and sampling the water at Cox's Creek with you and the film crew from 48 Hours, and I don't remember if it was 89 or 90 or 91, but it was in there somewhere back when the media landscape wasn't so broken up. And when you got on 48 Hours and CBS, you actually got a reaction.
Yeah. I think the industry shut down their businesses when they came into town. Every industry shut down.
And the reality is the corporate power hasn't changed. I came at it from the labor. I mean, that's why I had joined Texans United, because the National Toxics Campaign wanted labor represented, and that was me. And so when we went down to try to help you, it was clear that labor there wasn't necessarily on our side. They were all in fear of corporate power.
They were.
And 40 years later or whatever, it is not changed at all. Now we have data centers to worry about, and they want to put those little nuclear reactors on the Guadalupe. No, hell no. So I don't know how many more years we got left, but keep fighting.
I don't know either. Don't know either.
Anyway, thank you for being there. You honor my mom, and both of you up there at the head table are wonderful representations of what Sissy was all about.
Thank you, George.
And for one or two more, we can take two more just at the same time, and then we'll have Diane.
Was that Sissy right there?
No.
That's Sissy.
No, she's over here.
Hey, my name's Dr. Kristen Hook, and I'm actually scientist running for U.S. Congress here in Texas, and I'm from Corpus Christi, so thank you for fighting that fight on the local level. I'm trying to fight this fight on the federal level.
Yeah.
And one thing I want you to be aware of, and maybe other folks in the room who hear about this, that this regulatory capture you're talking about is also happening at the EPA. Just last week, the EPA administrator announced the new members, new scientists on their scientific advisory board within the EPA, because they threw out almost 35 scientists last year and they haven't replaced them. But it's loaded with chemical industry representatives, including Dow, including Chemours, including, so I just wanted to flag this for you and for others who care about this, that these fights have to happen at every level, but thank you for your effort and showing us the way here.
Well, thank you for running. I didn't have the guts to run. I was like, oh, wow.
But you'll do a hunger strike.
Yeah, I'll do a hunger strike.
Looks like one more question, and then Professor Torres. Let's start.
Hi, I'm one of the law students here, so I completely agree with your sentiment that sometimes you're just taught to accept things. The law is pretty old, and we just have any problems with it, and sort of just go forward with. I have a short question that I hope is just a one-word answer.
Sure.
Do you have hope for the future and the youth getting more?
Oh, I totally believe the spiral is upward. I really, really do. I really do. I know I'm in, sometimes I really believe it was my destiny to do that. I really, after all these years, that is what I feel. And to me, it's a spiritual journey, and it's to keep yourself positive, even in the midst of all the despair, because it can really look like a despair. But I know I have hope. It spirals. I'm telling you the truth. It spirals upward. And I'm not talking dogmatic religion. I'm talking just the cosmos. It's good. It's good. It's good.
I just wanted to, Diane, I wanted to thank you. The kind of organizing that you did is absolutely critical to making both law and politics work. I want to recognize Erin, who was in a lifetime ago was one of my students, and she brought one of the really most important cases out of Corpus years ago. She probably has forgotten about it already. It's been so long ago. But you both exemplify the kind of work that is the best of Texans, if you ask me. And I want to thank you. I want to thank you for making this Earth Day as meaningful as it has been. So remember, it's not about a celebration. It's about organizing.
Yes,
getting to work.
Definitely that. Definitely that.
Thank you.
Thank you.